Good morning, and welcome to another episode of The Edge. My name is Franki Casilli. From 2017 to 2018, the use of e-cigarettes among high school students has increased 78%. Some popular companies known as Juul, Altria, and Enjoy have made their way into high schools across the country. The high levels of nicotine in these products led to severe addiction. They're also being used as a way to administer illegal drugs such as marijuana. The first Juul was created in 2015, so they are still relatively new. There have been recent cases of mysterious lung diseases and deaths related to these products and the lack of research on the contents. Originally, these products were created as a way for adults to quit smoking, but many young people are using it as what they believe to be a safe alternative to cigarettes. I am here with Assistant Principal of Peters Township High School, Mrs. Joie Conroy, to discuss how this problem is impacting our school and how we can combat this issue as a community. Hi.
Hi.
How are you today?
Great, Frankie. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay, so first I kind of just want to start out with talking about our policy that we have here for vaping. So what is our school policy?
So you can't have any tobacco products, nicotine products on school grounds, regardless of age. That's been a conversation around. If you're 18, can you, if you can legally buy them, can you bring them in? Absolutely not. You cannot. If you do get caught with any e-cigarettes, cigarettes, pods, any paraphernalia related to them, we do have 3 different levels. So your first offense, you would be suspended for 3 days. Second offense, you would be suspended for 5 days. Any other offense after that would be progressive discipline and or expulsion. Along with the consequences of suspension, you also will be cited to the magistrate. You will be, if you're a senior, your parking pass could be revoked. You will also be referred to our student assistant program for possible smoking cessation classes.
Okay. So I know that since they're relatively new, it's difficult to know what to look for. So how are we educating our staff on what to look for?
So I know that schools across the country and at our high school here, we're really just trying to educate staff about what they look like. They really change very quickly. It's like one day they look like something and the next day they're smaller or bigger. Right. They start to kind of transform into new kind of ways of doing it. So we just want to make sure that we're educating people on what they look like, what they are, how to spot them, exactly what to look for.
Right, and I know kids do disguise them. So how are they disguising them? How is it difficult for you guys to find these things and get to the bottom of it?
I think the thing that's really difficult, and I think for schools it's difficult, and I think it's also difficult as a parent when I'm talking to parents about it, because they do look very similar to USB drives. Some of them look like pens. They really look like our everyday objects. So it's really hard to, if you're without inspecting everything, to look and see exactly what they are. So I think it's just really about education and educating parents and staff and kids about what these devices are.
Yeah, and I actually do want to talk about education. So why don't we educate, since the situation is escalating, why don't we educate our students on the health effects and why these things are so bad for them?
I think that's a great question. So I think that, I think you had said in your opening, it's been kind of so fast, right? They kind of came on the scene very quickly. I think, I'm not an expert, but I think that they had come as an alternative to smoking.
Yeah.
And now they've just have blown up, right? They have, everyone is using them. They're in all these different forms. And so I think that we didn't know a lot of the health effects of them. Yeah. And I think now as we're seeing news stories, a lot of the health effects that are coming from them and all of the negative things that they're doing to not only kids, but to all people by using them. Yeah. So I think that's something that we need to look into as part of our curriculum, is making sure that we're talking about those side effects for sure.
Yeah, so, and you said it is continuing to escalate. So is there a plan for our policies to change or what are we going to do if the situation continues to escalate?
Again, I think the most important part is we just need to educate. Yeah. Like, we need kids, parents, everyone to really know what the implications are for using these devices. Yeah. I don't think, escalating consequences is the answer. I think that it's more, we have those consequences, but now we just need to make sure that not only just our kids know, but everyone knows why you shouldn't be using them and why we're so serious about, if you do, what those consequences are.
Yeah, and I think being in high school, peer pressure has a lot to do with it. So how do you feel about peer pressure and how that has caused this problem?
I think you are right on, Franki. I think you are right on. So I think that peer pressure definitely has caused the increase in our young people using the different devices. And so I think that we need to use peer pressure to our advantage on the other side, right? So and how can we talk to kids, show kids that this isn't, we don't want them to do it, why they shouldn't do that. I think sometimes they take that better from their peers than they do from either administrators or teachers or their parents. So we need to kind of use the peer pressure and of why not to do it instead of why to do it.
That's a good idea. I never thought about it that way.
Good.
So you had mentioned parents as well. How are parents responding when these type of things happen or when their kids are getting caught?
So I think that parents are very worried. They're worried about their kids. They've all been just very concerned. Any conversation that I've had about what they can do to help, how they can help their kids, not want to do this anymore, how they can identify the different devices to make sure that they're not in their homes. Mm-hmm. They've been really supportive, and I think they just are really looking for answers of how to help their kids.
Yeah. How do you respond to a student or a parent that's in denial and they don't really think that they're doing anything wrong?
So I think that a lot of times, as a parent, I think you just want your kids to be doing the best thing that they can be. Yeah. And so I think that in just really talking to parents around what the facts of it is, how things were discovered, and just really trying to be a support. And sometimes being a support is just sometimes supporting the parent just as much as you have to support the students.
So what correlating problems are you noticing with kids that are also, or is it causing an increase in other disciplinary things like that?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely causing, I'm getting more discipline referrals around class cuts, right? Okay. I think there's a lot more of students coming late to school, leaving early from school, whether or not that is so that they can vape or so that they can, find someone else that's going to give them a device. Yeah. So I think that definitely has increased in disciplinary referrals.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So we have clubs like the SAD Club, Students Against Destructive Decisions.
Right.
So how has the SAD Club or clubs like that made an effort to solve this problem, or are they making an effort to solve this problem?
So I honestly, I'm not sure if they've taken on the vaping issue. I think that's a great point that we should go to SAD and talk about that. They may have already had a campaign around that, but I'm not sure of it.
I think that would be a great resource for us to use.
I think so too.
Something like, So how has the training process for teachers changed since this problem has escalated?
So I think in professional development, it's just really talking and training teachers around what vapes are, what the e-cigarettes are, all of the different devices, and how they can kind of be, kids can sneak them into class or use them in class. But also I think more around what, that this is an epidemic, and we really need to figure out a way to help kids, right? Yeah. And to discourage kids from using the e-cigarettes.
Yeah. So we also have Officer Stevick here in the building. So how has his job changed, or how is he looking at this epidemic and way to fix it?
So I think he's pretty much on board with administration. So he's really just wants to make sure that kids don't have the devices in school, make sure if they do that they're confiscated. He also is on the law side of it, of having to send, students or whomever to the magistrates because you aren't allowed to have those devices in school, and tobacco products or nicotine products in school. Okay.
So what is the punishment if you catch someone who is 18? Is the punishment the same that's giving or giving tobacco products to minors? Is
a student?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, so what is the punishment if you catch someone who's 18 giving tobacco products to minors on school property?
So for school, for school action, like suspension, those types of things, it would be the same. Now, what they would do legally, that would be something Officer Stevick would pursue. I'm not sure if that's a different law or not.
Okay. So how has our education process been interrupted due to this epidemic?
So I think that I think not only just interruptions of class time, of having to call kids out of class, of having to meet with students, of having students be suspended from school and missing out on instruction because of vaping, I think that has been, the biggest disruption in our everyday practice. I think also the health effects of it, I think we haven't even seen what's to come and how great those health effects really may be. They're just really starting to come through, and people are starting to show some major major health effects that are really scary.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that, kids are seeing this, and young people and people in general are seeing this, seeing that we're really risking our lives and our health to use these devices.
Yeah, which it isn't worth it. So.
Right.
So what is the difference in offenses between under and upperclassmen? Because I know you're the 11th and 12th grade principal, right? So
yes.
What is there a difference, or what is the difference between?
You mean in the amount?
Yeah.
So I would say that it's been fairly. So I've only been here for a few months.
Yeah,
so since
right.
I've been here, it's been fairly equal amongst the groups.
So I know we talked about getting the message out to students and increasing education within our school, but how can we increase education to the parents as well so that they know what to look for and how to stop these things from coming into school in the first place?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think that you had talked about something earlier around peers being able to do that and around some of our groups like SAD.
Yeah.
I think that we really need to have conversations around a campaign for students to really educate each other, educate parents, educate teachers.
Okay. What has been the community's response in general to this epidemic? How has the community come together to battle what's going on?
Yeah, I think that all the communities, I think even, I know just even in the counties in Western Pennsylvania, there's been a lot of research and a lot of resources put into trying to combat this epidemic. And so I think that, I don't know specifically, this community and against another community, but I think that there is a consensus that we need to figure out how to get vaping under control and get people educated on what it is, and that it's not a safe alternative to smoking. And I think that's what some conversations lead to, is that people believe, and I think we need to just get that message out there.
Yeah, I do think if the community can get behind it, then we can come up with a great solution to stop it.
I agree.
So we're gonna take a quick break and we will be right back. Okay, so before the break, you had mentioned the SAP or SAP referral. What is that exactly, and how are we using it?
So that's called Student Assistance Program, and what that is that's a program that we have set up at school to really help assist students in lots of different areas. So it can be in mental health, if you were struggling with anxiety, depression, any type of mental health, we can provide services for that. It's also for drug and alcohol counseling, for, like we said, about vaping, if you needed smoking cessation. It's really an outlet to assist students in ways other than academic. It's really a good resource. We provide those services. They can be here at school, or we can link you up with someone outside of school. If you were looking for how you would be a part of that, that's something you would see your counselor for, and you can talk to them and they can refer you to that program.
So how do the teachers play a role with that program? Do they, since it's referral, do they refer students, or does it work like that? Or
Great question. So yes, they do. So teachers can refer a student, administrators can refer a student, a parent can do a referral, you can refer yourself. And what happens is there's a whole group, there's a whole team. It's called the Student Assistant Program team. And so what happens is it's a team of counselors, administrators, teachers that have been specially trained, and outside providers that they come together and they get to really figure out, let's put all of our heads together and figure out how we can best support students.
Okay. So next I kind of want to talk about the banning of e-cigarettes and your opinion. So what do you think about this new ban that's going to be out on e-cigarettes?
So I don't really have an opinion either way on the ban necessarily. I'm more worried about getting people educated on why they shouldn't, right? Because sometimes, although we can put a ban on things, it doesn't always necessarily stop everyone from doing that. So I think that if we ban them, that's great. That's a great thing, but I don't think that will stop everyone if they don't have the proper education on why they shouldn't use them.
Okay. So we had talked about it being used as an alternative to smoking. Why do you think these companies were targeting kids, and why has it become something that isn't being used as an alternative to smoking?
I'm glad that you brought that up. So what we do see is that companies are targeting our young people. They're have all different flavors. You can go online and see a zillion different flavors, and they're the graphic designs that are on some of the pods are very attractive to younger people. There's even research out there showing younger than high school age, right? So they're really advertising towards children. And I think that when that happens, it makes kids think that it's cool and it's something that they want to do. And it's ethically, it's terrible, right? But even if you think about kids seeing that and really saying like, oh, bubblegum flavored, whatever it is, you think, oh, that can't be harmful. Yeah. And so unless we really are educating each other, and I think you hit on it before with being with peers, right? Having some forum to be able to educate each other around, just because it's something is a good flavor, seems like it's something you might like, it's not, it's harmful to your body.
Yeah. So some kind of forum to educate. What steps can we take to start educating our students?
So I think definitely the SAD, you had talked about SAD earlier, I think that's a great first place to start. I think as a class, is a media department, that could be something that that we could talk about on how we could kind of get that out there to make sure that we're talking about it, right? We're not just saying we don't have that problem. Yeah. We're saying this is what we need to do to combat that problem. And I think like new news stories coming out will be really helpful for that case.
How could we use our media department to convey this message through like the morning announcements or something like that?
Yeah, I think that would be something that you guys should definitely consider or talk about. I think that could be definitely something that we could look into and see how you guys wanted to put that out there. I think the message coming from other students is more powerful than it coming from a teacher and administration and parents. I think hearing it and hearing other kids' stories is something that's really helpful.
And there have been, also you mentioned before, multiple cases of like students getting lung diseases and mysterious deaths. So how can we get those stories across as almost a way to kind of not scare students, but get them to realize that this is seriously bad for them.
Right, to show them that this is what's happening.
Right.
Yeah, I think we do need to make sure that students are aware of these things happening. And as research is kind of being conducted and as we're coming across these things, it all seems to be pretty new. We need to make sure that we're getting that out there to our students. So I think that's, you had mentioned earlier about educating students in like our health curriculum or in some type of curriculum. So I think we need to get those messages there too.
So how, so incorporating it into our like health classes and health programs, how could we teach these things in health class? What types of things would we tell our students?
So I think again, it would be to make sure that they know the facts, right, of what vaping is, what juuling is, and what the consequences of that are, and whether that's the studies that we're seeing on TV, the different you would mention like the different lung diseases or deaths that have happened. I think we need to make sure that kids are aware of that. So that's something I think that they could address there too.
Yeah. So how would consequences change, Can I close now?
Going forward, what can we do to help students?
Okay. So moving forward, what can we do to help students to prevent this from getting worse and to stop this in its tracks now before it escalates?
So I think you brought up a lot of things today that make me think about, I think we need to team with administration, with maybe a group of students, either SAD or another group of students that's really interested, and brainstorm around how we can get that message out from our perspective and from student perspective. I think if we all kind of come together and really we have the same end goal and figure out how to work it in different directions, that maybe we'll be able to get the information out there to stop it in its tracks.
Right, I agree. I think it's really important to use students and use the resources that we have here to our advantage.
Yeah.
Okay. Thankfully, research on these products is being done and the word is being spread about the negative health effects. Hopefully, we can work together as a team to combat this issue as a community and show students that e-cigarettes are not worth the risks. That is all we have time for today. Thank you very much, Mrs. Conroy, for being here, and we will see you on the next episode of The Edge.